The Chiricahuas has a fire history pretty similar to most of southern Arizona. That is, with a period of repression of fires in the early 1900s all the way up until at least the 80s. We had a period of dryness and drought, and that drought resulted in the Horseshoe 2 fire in 2011, which burned almost the entire mountain range, about 200,000 acres. There's not been a similar fire since. In some parts of this mountain range, 9 years would be a reasonable time for it to come back and burn again. I'm Jim Malusa. I'm a research scientist with the School of Natural Resources and the Environment from the University of Arizona. I'm here with my wife, geologist Sonia Norman of the Desert Museum, and together we're going to look at the recovery from the Horseshoe 2 fire. Okay, now we're very close, and now comes the fun part. When we take a look at the picture, because look, there's that tree. And this one. I consider myself a plant ecologist, and vegetation mapping is one of my specialties, and that is why things live here and not over there. And as part of that work, I also do repeat photography to see how vegetation changes through time.
I can see that ridge, this one, this is the closer one.
Repeat photography is a great way to keep your finger on the pulse of ecosystem changes, mainly because it's so understandable and easy to see. With pictures, everyone can just look at it and say, oh, the pines are all being replaced by oaks. And so it's a visual and informative way of seeing what's going on in our world. It's more than just taking a picture. We're going to try to get an idea of the relative ground cover of the different species out here. Here's last year's. You can see Sonia with the, I have written here, a struggling QUEM, that's Quercus emeryii. And it looks like that one has died as well. That's that little one right there next to the turpentine bush.
I see it.
The main driver of ecosystem change is going to be disturbance. When something happens, it can be a drought, it could be a fire, it could be grazing, it could be many things. And that sets in motion a series of changes in the species, and that sometimes returns the ecosystem to what it was before, and sometimes it doesn't. As a young man, I was lucky enough to have parents who let me wander, and that was a big part of exploring the world, right? I was actually released into it. And so when I got my first backpack as a 16-year-old, I said, I want to go overnight in the mountains. And they said, have a good time. And Mom drove me up Sabino Canyon, back when you could drive up Sabino Canyon, scraped the side of the station wagon on the bridges, the skinny bridges, and just let me loose. There's some hikes that I've done since I lived here so long. There's a particular one in the Rincons. I've been hiking every year since '74. It's like 45, 46 years of making the same hike. And I remember when changes happened early on in those trips in my life, when I was in year 10 or 20, and there'd be a landslide or fire and things would fall down, and I'd be distraught actually. I'd be going, oh God, I've lost my favorite place. But I didn't lose it. It just turned into something else. And I think every loss is an opportunity for another species. Of course, we hate to see change that we can blame on ourselves and say that we made it hotter. From the repeat photography that we've done in the Chiricahuas so far, it's apparent that ecosystems at the lower level of it, for example, the pine oak ecosystem, they're susceptible to losing particular species that need cooler conditions. Cooler conditions are wetter conditions. And so our primary concern with the Bighorn Fire would be losing forested areas and having them turn into scrubland, just because it's now a bit warmer and drier. And if that does occur, the things at the very tippy top are going to be pushed off into oblivion, and that would include the corkbark fir, which is a species that It's in the Catalinas and the Pinalenas, and that's the only two places that it's found in the Coronado, the National Forest. All right, so where we're going to go next? We're going to go up the mountain a little bit higher, up the road toward Barfoot Park, and visit pine ecosystems. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I first got here, I was pretty disappointed to see the Chihuahuan pines, who were my kind of hero of this ecosystem that had come back so strongly. Now they're all brown. And at first I thought maybe they're dead or they're almost dead, but it ends up, after we've measured 10 of these trees, that they actually did grow. They've managed to grow 20 centimeters over the last 2 years. But it's clear to anyone that gets up close to one of these trees, they're stressed out. And so everything's going to rely on probably the next year of rain. And so if we get a late season hurricane, that would help. October rain in here, but one more dry summer, and so that could be the end of this pine forest. Humans like trees, and especially in a hot place, they want to sit under a tree, and they don't want to sit under a bush. And so we have a natural tendency to lament the loss of forests. Whether or not you would call that a natural change, if forest burns and it comes back as oak scrub, depends on your definition of natural. You know, humans are part of nature, and we've always changed the world around us. And so people need to decide what we want our world to look like and act to help that happen.